Perfect. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smashing Brands podcast. And today I am joined by
Eric Goldman. That's
Eric.
me.
Eric, that is you indeed. I appreciate you being here, and I'm excited to have an intentional, awesome conversation with you.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here too. Thanks for inviting me.
So, the first question I always like to ask is, how do you spend your time on planet Earth?
Well, when I'm not working and helping small businesses to grow and
Hmm.
scale, which is my favorite thing to do, I play a ton of pickleball. I
Okay.
caught the bug 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and I have an amazing group of friends, and we play 3 times a week. There's
Wow.
about a dozen of us, so it's super fun. It's a great game if you haven't played it.
Yeah, my parents are all about pickleball. So they retired I think a few years ago, and in their like 55 and up neighborhood, in Arizona, they have all these pickleball courts and all of that. And actually when I moved out here, even, a lot of people my age have been playing it, because it's just like the sport's kind of taken off. And it's a fun way to get your cardio in, I'm not gonna lie. And
It
it helps you
is.
stay present, and it's good. It's good stuff.
Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the US. And the last I looked, there were over 10 million people that were playing. My guess is that's probably doubled by now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen all the leagues and all the pro tournaments. It's pretty exciting to watch. It moves really quickly.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And you're based out of the Bay Area, San Francisco, correct?
Yeah, I'm just outside San Francisco in Sausalito.
Yeah. And out of all the places you could live, why do you choose there?
Well, it's California. So, in terms of my politics, especially Northern California, that's an important piece of it. I grew up here,
Yeah.
originally in Berkeley, and then lived in the city from teenage years all through college into the early part of my career.
Hmm.
And it's the perfect combination of, pretty easy place to live, beautiful views. I like being near the water, and there's
Yeah.
tons to do. Living in Marin's especially nice just because it's not very congested and there's a lot of green space.
Yeah. No, I share your enthusiasm around California. There's aside from paying the high taxes, I think it's one of the best places to live, at least in the United States. Now, being a coach is a pretty niche thing. There's a lot of careers, there's a lot of different routes we can take as business owners. So I want to know, like, what led you in a direction towards coaching? Like, how did it all start for you?
Well, the early part of my career, I was always building new businesses, launching new markets or opening new verticals. Initially, that was for Esprit. Then I did the same thing at Levi Strauss, launching the Dockers brand. And
Yeah.
then at Disney, that's when I lived in Los Angeles for 5 years. I
Hmm.
was the head of global sales and marketing for consumer products. So,
Yeah.
building franchises in new markets, understanding the customer's journey, how people connect with brands. So after doing all that, and I also spent another 5 years doing that at ESPN, launching franchises like the X Games. I wanted to go out on my own, and it just seemed
Yeah.
like a natural fit to do the same kind of work, but directly with business owners and CEOs in small to mid-sized firms.
Yeah. So what was that like going on? So how long ago was that, by the way, when you went on your own?
It's been 16 years.
Okay. So that would take us back to like 2008, basically. 2009, 2009.
Sounds right.
Yeah. So what was that like in 2008 in the midst of all that going out on your own?
Well, I certainly couldn't have picked a worse time,
Yeah.
but interestingly, we adopted our baby girl then. So I took about 6 months off
Hmm.
just to care for her. So I wasn't completely rattled by the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And as things got better, I was able to reach out to my network and help people that were struggling, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Half of that was about helping them through some kind of exit strategy,
Hmm.
whether that was, horribly bankruptcy or, maybe some kind of merger or acquisition. And then also folks that wanted to start new businesses.
Yeah. And a lot of coaches out there struggle. I would say the majority of them actually do. I read a statistic that I think it's only like 10% of coaches make six figures or more or something like that. So I want to like what has been the key to you towards making a sustainable, successful coaching business long term? I know like part of what definitely helped was having that network, having
Yeah.
worked in corporate for so long. But is there anything that maybe people like overlook that you feel is important that you'd want to talk about?
It's interesting. Having a network has been instrumental in me launching my business and growing it. There's no doubt about that. Especially my network around Disney, because there are a lot of really talented folks that also went out on their own and started their own businesses. So that's been an amazing network for me.
Yeah.
One of the things that differentiates me as a coach is that I do have clients where I'm advising and guiding.
Hmm.
That's the minority of where I spend my time. But what I do as a coach is a little different and a little bit more like a consultant.
Yeah.
So I'll dive in and start working with them. Typically, it's 3 months at a minimum, about a
Yeah.
year is average, and sometimes it's 18 months. And
Yeah.
I actually do a lot of the work.
Yeah.
So I'm not just advising them and giving them a bunch of stuff and saying goodbye and I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah.
I have as much, homework or analysis as they do. And, that covers all aspects of their business.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that because even in my own line of business, like, what am I? Am I a coach? Am I a consultant? Am I an agency? And it can sometimes seem like a full blend. So, what do you feel like are like the major problems that you're helping your clients solve right now? And who are they like? Who is like your ideal client? Let's start with that.
That's a great question. My ideal client is in the professional services uh, vertical.
Hmm.
And typically, they can be well-funded startups, and I underline well-funded.
Hmm.
Um, they can be 1 million, 5 million, up to 20 million in revenue,
Yeah.
and their their mindset is about growth. So they're
Yeah.
definitely looking to grow.
Hmm.
And I have two kinds of customers. I have what I call frustrated technicians and then forward thinkers.
Okay.
So the frustrated technicians in the professional services world are attorneys, marketing, creative agency heads, engineers, architects, mental health professionals, healthcare, tech, and they've kind of reached a point of their own business acumen. So
Hmm.
they've gotten their company to where it's at and it's
Yeah.
running pretty well, but they're either stuck or they just don't know what to do next in order to truly grow their business. They're great at what they do. They're
Yeah.
great technicians, great lawyers. have great creative or marketing agencies, or have really successful like a mental health care practice.
Yeah. And what,
And
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the other group of my clients are the forward thinkers. So they're at a place where they can really dive in and do a lot of that work and figuring out how to grow. And I help guide them in that effort. And they're thinking, where do I want to be in 5 or 10 years? Do I want to, what's my exit strategy? Do I want to sell my business? Do I want to keep it, but be kind of a silent owner and just have steady revenue stream? Or, am I looking for some type of acquisition?
Yeah.
So I help them through that. And a lot of what I do in those situations is really get them prepared for due diligence.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you think is like the main, yeah, because a lot of business success is, I think Tony Robbins said it's 80% psychology, like 20% skill set.
Mhm.
What do you feel like are the big like mental blocks holding a lot of people back that you've experienced as a coach?
That's a good question. Mental blocks for my clients are usually fear-based,
Yeah.
or it's about control.
Hmm. Those
Can
are kind
also
of
be
tied together in a sense, right?
exactly. So they're either afraid to make that big step to really transform their organization,
Yeah.
to lose some control, to delegate, to build a team of folks that can do a lot of the work so they can really move into what I call a visionary role.
Yeah.
EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, is pretty
Hmm.
popular kind of people management system that I use sometimes. And one of the things that it does, interestingly, is it separates out the visionary from what they call the integrator. So it's kind of like CEO president or CEO CFO.
Hmm.
So, the person at the top is really visionary and getting out there in the marketplace, talking to the biggest clients, and thinking forward where they want to be. And then the integrator or president or COO is the person that's making sure that the day-to-day stuff is getting done.
Yeah.
So it's hard for a lot of my clients to kind of let go of the day-to-day,
Yeah.
and really move into a more kind of visionary strategic role.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And how do you feel like, whether it directly relates to what you're talking about right there or not, how have you been able to move past fear in your own life? Are there any like rituals, practices, things that have like helped you as an entrepreneur?
It's interesting that you asked that question about what things I use to help me when I'm fearing the future, or feeling like I'm not in a position of abundance.
Hmm.
And interestingly, I watched your podcast about um, being loving, which
Hmm.
I thought was really key.
Yeah.
We forget that a huge part of business success is about being not only likable, but being genuine.
Yeah.
And I know the word authentic is overused, but just being kind of who you are and being honest, and caring for other people, and really caring, not just lip service.
Yeah.
So I try to live my life that way,
Yeah.
to care for the people around me, to care for my clients. And I'm really clear about what I can control and what I can't control.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm I'm able to just give over to the stuff that I can't control and just focus on the things that I can, and try to make a meaningful difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think it's just really just showing up the best that you can. Just do your best.
Yeah.
You know? Do your best and be genuine. And On top of that, I feel like that's kind of like directly related to this idea of letting go of control, doing the best that we can, being genuine and caring. There's definitely like a spiritual element to that. So
Mhm.
do you identify with, spirituality, faith, and what's sort of been like your journey with that?
I grew up in a pretty agnostic household,
Yeah.
so there wasn't much religion.
Hmm.
Um, Both my parents were academics, so um, there just wasn't a place really for that in their lives, and they had been forced into it by their parents, so they decided that they were not going to do that in our family.
Right.
So there wasn't much of a religious focus, but as I grew up, I started to feel some sense of something bigger than me.
Hmm.
And for a really long time, I used to think of them as angels. And I've kind of broadened my perspective in that it's really the universe and the idea that, we're probably not the only species in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So there's other people, there's other worlds, there's all kinds of other things going on. And the more that you can connect with that, kind of connect with that energy. And for me, that's getting out in nature, taking a walk, going somewhere beautiful. I'm really
Yeah.
fortunate because I can walk out my front door and, you know, get on a nice trail going
Yeah.
through, the Marin Headlands and, look at the ocean or, look at Mount Tam and just taking that time to connect makes a big difference.
Yeah. I'm all about that. I love walking. That's my thing. It seems like that's kind of your form of cardio as well. Lately, I've been trying to, make an effort to get like 10,000 steps a day, and
Great.
just go for an hour walk, and I don't know, like you obviously do quite a bit of walking. I feel like when I'm walking, I get a lot of like creative ideas and stuff like that that
Mhm.
otherwise wouldn't have happened, So what are those like types of things, I guess, like outside of just working at your desk that like are just important to your success as the work itself?
You bring up a really good point. The things that I do to nurture creativity
Hmm.
in my life and in my business is by getting away from my business.
Hmm.
So it's counterintuitive and I'm not great at it. So, I'll be at my computer trying to bang out a document or proposal or a plan for a client.
Hmm.
And I find myself trying to push through to find a solution or to be creative. And
Yeah.
that's not when I do my best work. But if I stop working
Yeah.
and I walk outside and I go for a ride or walk, whatever it might be, or even, playing pickleball where you're completely consumed by the game because
Yeah.
it's as much mental as it is physical, just because it moves so fast.
Yeah.
And then, afterwards, all of a sudden, there's all these ideas. They just start popping into my head and I'm refreshed. I have a better perspective. And then I can go back to the work and do something really creative.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think it's all about just like, I like to say that one of my goals on a daily basis is just to be in flow as much as possible, because flow is where it's where the magic happens, just whether I'm working or not, just being in like a good emotional state. So I think that's one of the most important things. It's just like, I don't know if you relate to this, but it's like if we can feel the best that we can on a daily basis, regardless
Hmm.
of what's happening, we're just going to attract the best possible things in our life for us.
100%. I also think it's as important as it is to, as you worded it, be in flow or be connected.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to acknowledge the times when you're not and you can't be.
Hmm.
So you're in a funk, you didn't get enough sleep, you've got a cold, whatever that is that's kind of interfering with that,
Hmm.
and telling yourself that's okay. This is going to be a bad day, or is a bad day, or I'm just not being very productive, and letting yourself off the hook and
Yeah.
say, what? I probably shouldn't work today. Like, I'm just going to hang out, binge watch a show, take a nap, whatever that might be, and
Yeah.
let it be okay. I think that's taken me a really long time to embrace, because I was able to put aside expectations and what I
Hmm.
thought I had to get done, or what I thought other people thought I had to get done. And it
Yeah.
just made me miserable.
How do you learn that lesson? Like, was there a breaking point for you at some point?
That's a good question. A breaking point. I don't know if there was one particular breaking point that got me to the idea that it was okay to have bad days. I think it was gradual, and definitely more in my solo practice, when
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody to answer to but myself, and of course my clients. But if I was good at managing their expectations, then I'd be able to kind of walk away, take a break, do what I needed to do to energize myself.
Yeah. Was there anything like, what do you think was, let's talk about over like the last 5 years. What do you think was like the most rewarding thing, whether in business or life? What do you feel like was the most rewarding thing that you have experienced?
It's a great question. The most awarding thing that I've experienced, quite frankly, was discovering pickleball. It,
Okay.
I mean, it did a bunch of things. It got me active on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's not boring. I'd
Mhm.
go to the gym 3 times a week, and I still go, but it's working out's boring. Strength training, whatever it is,
Okay.
I just don't get that excited about it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but playing pickleball is fun, and it's super social. And I really like the people that I play with, and we're together on a regular basis. So 3 times a week, I'm with this really nurturing, caring, fun group of people.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to be in situations where you're not social, especially when you're working from home and your work is virtual.
Yeah.
You can sit in front of a computer, you could be on a camera like we are, but being out with real people, having
Yeah.
connection, it feeds my soul.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and it's not only good for your health, your physical health, but all your also your mental because I haven't done a lot of research on this, but like I know about the blue zones. You've heard about the blue zones, the areas where people live to be. Have you heard this term, blue zones?
I haven't.
So these blue zones are like certain areas in the world where people live to be like really old, like over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like, well, why? How do these people get to live so long, you know? And a lot of the time, it doesn't even have to do with diet or anything like that, but it's really just around being around other people who they share common interests with, having that sense of community and that activeness. So I don't know, when you think like, oh, pickleball is like a big part of my life, I think, yeah, like is this the first time in a while that you've had like kind of a strong sense of community outside of like work and stuff like that in the area?
Certainly in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that's probably something you'll take with you until you can't, you probably still play, 15, 20 years from now, and I I see a lot of people, even in my parents' neighborhood, the 55 and up neighborhood, there's people that are 75, 80 years old, playing pickleball. And no, I think just What advice would you give to anybody looking for their pickleball, whether it's pickleball or not, but something outside of work that really helps and supports their life in a lot of ways?
I think community is a really big part of healthy mental well-being.
Yeah,
I think feeling like there are folks out there that care for you, people that are supportive, people that you can lean on during difficult times. And
yeah,
equally important is your ability to do those things for other people. Because I think just as rewarding and comforting as it is to receive that,
yeah,
it's also really important to be able to reciprocate and to empathize and care for other people and what that does for you, known or unknown, um, being able to kind of be out in the world sharing, good energy and hope and light.
totally. I'm reading this book. It's called Inner Excellence. Have you heard of it?
I haven't. What's it about?
It's on the rise. It got mentioned in a couple of NFL football games, and I started reading it. And it's really just basically how to like have the most happy life you can at like the highest level of performance. And it says like this isn't a specific quote, but it says like one of the biggest root of all of our suffering is self-centeredness.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because you think about it, like if we weren't, what are all the things that make us anxious, fearful, whatever? It's this, it comes back to us caring about ourselves too much.
Hmm.
Like, well, if we just gave more of our love to other people and made it less about us and more about them, we'd be a lot happier
Yeah.
on a daily basis. Is there anything that you've done over the years, whether it was volunteering, helping out, pro bono coaching, anything like that, that kind of relates to this topic?
Yeah, I've been on the board of a scholarship fund that focuses on folks that have had pretty hard lives,
Hmm.
but even in the face of that, they've become leaders, whether that's within their community or within their school. And these are college students going to one of the UC or um, SF university colleges,
Hmm.
and they've demonstrated their leadership, but they need a lot of support. There's a financial component to it. We
Yeah.
also provide therapy or counseling, medical, and they get two types of mentors. So one is around school, and the other one is helping them towards their career goals.
Nice.
And we have about 115 scholars now,
Oh, amazing.
and 95% of them finish their 4 year, 75% of them go on to get graduate degrees, and they're now, they're lawyers, they're judges, they're doctors,
Oh,
they're writers, they're politicians, they're in academia. So mentoring those students, those scholars, has been a big part of that because it's really about helping people to realize their goals.
hmm.
And on a personal level, I've kept a gratitude list on a pretty regular basis,
Yeah.
and I keep it super simple. It's three things. So I typically do it at the end of the day, and I
Yeah.
just pick three things. And it could literally be, a vase full of flowers. It doesn't have to be anything huge, but
Yeah.
I find it helps ground me, and
Yeah.
it helps me appreciate all the things that I have.
Yeah. I love it. So I have one final question for you, Eric. So let's say it's the end of your life, and for whatever reason, There's nothing to show for it. It might have been for whatever reason, everything burned in a fire. All the things you might have written, all the things that, maybe you would have said to people, whatever it might be. It's all like there's no record of any of it. And you can leave the world with three things.
Oh,
Three things,
wow.
yeah, three things that you know to be true about the world around you. What are
Okay.
And if you need a minute, totally good.
So I'm basically standing in a pile of ashes because everything is gone.
Yeah.
What are the three things I would take with me at the end of my life?
No, what are the three things that you would share with other people?
Oh, as as wisdom?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Um, the first one is to recognize that there is something bigger than you,
Hmm.
whatever that might be. It could be religious, it could be God, it could be the universe, it could be spirits, whatever that is, but recognizing that, because I think it's a great way to avoid or at least temper, as you mentioned before, being too self-centered or
Hmm.
too selfish. I would say the second one is to have a regular practice of giving. And
Cool.
that can be just helping people. You could be
Yep.
doing that, through your work. You could be doing that through, some kind of activity or some type of community service.
Hmm.
And the third one, I would say taking care of yourself, body, mind, and spirit. So make sure you're taking care of your body physically, whatever that is, making
Hmm.
sure that you're taking care of your mental health.
Yep.
And to the extent that you have some type of connection with spirit or energy, or as you mentioned, flow,
Oh,
those are the three things.
nice. I love it. Well, Eric, where can the people find you?
They can find me on my website, which is goldmancoaching.com. They can also send me an email at Eric, Eric, at
Yep.
goldmancoaching.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, appreciate you having you on the show.
Thanks so much, Alec. Thanks for having me.